throughout the presentation, if you could. Thank you, Gerald. Good evening, everyone. We are going to get started now. So throughout the presentation, if you could keep yourself on mute, that would be very helpful. And I am going to share my screen. Doesn't happen. All right, can everybody see my shared screen? All right, awesome. So good evening, everyone. My name is Shweta Arya. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Executive Director of Delaware Interfaith Power and Light. We are a faith-based environmental nonprofit, have been around since over a decade now, working with faith communities in addressing climate change through our programs, climate education, and climate advocacy. And we are one of the 40 state affiliates of National Interfaith Power and Light. Tonight we are hosting our climate conversation program. That's one of our education programs that is funded by Energize Delaware, like many other programs that Delaware IPL offer to faith communities. We have a climate conversation program. We've been doing it for several years now, and we have done over 60 of these climate conversations, some in person, a lot online, like tonight. And we bring in experts on different topics and talk about the biggest crisis, humanitarian crisis that humanity is facing today, that is climate change. Through our conversations, we're trying to change the narrative from gloom and doom to something that is filled with hope and solutions and is positive. Changing our ability to think about climate change in a more positive light, that this problem is created by us humans, and we have the potential to work on solutions. As I said, we are hosting Climate Conversation program is funded by Energize Delaware. Energize Delaware is a state-funded nonprofit. You can check them out at energizedelaware.org. They provide financial assistance, loans, and funding to residences, nonprofits, and all organized businesses to make them energy efficient and climate resilient. So please check them out. Tonight's program is also co-hosted with Teach a Person to Fish Society. And I would like to invite the co-founder, Teresa, to now just share with us the wonderful work your organization is doing to combat food insecurity and create more sustainable environment in Sussex. So, Teresa, would you like to just quickly share your thoughts on sustainability and just your mission at TAPS?
Sure. Thank you for having me join this conversation, Sweta. It's one that we've been working on since 2020, and some of the statistics I can't fool around with the computer and
I'm going to pull it
same
out.
time. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for pulling it up.
Yeah.
Because I can't do that. We've been concerned about this same thing as many of you probably have as well. Back in 2020, when we were, first year into the pandemic. If you all remember the stories on the news about supply chain issues causing farmers to plow under their crops and whatever. And it was just such a horrible thing to see because they couldn't get the food to grocery stores. And so they just had to plow it under. And at the same time as that statistic that you put on your slide, Shweta, that 1/3 of all food goes to waste. NPR was reporting 1/4 of all American adults were experiencing food insecurity. So, like, how can these two statistics exist at the same time? So we took that, and initially our mission was to have a network of community gardens that donated fresh produce to that. We quickly found that the clients at the food pantries, some of the clients, a slice of the clients, really didn't want just fresh whole produce that would sit there and go to waste because they didn't have either the facilities to process it or cook, or the wherewithal to take an eggplant and know what to do with it. So we were like, okay, we belong to the Unitarian Universalists of Southern Delaware Church. And one of the things that we used to do pre-pandemic was provide meals to shelters on a rotating basis with other faith communities in the area. And we said, what if we take all that excess produce, make meals out of that produce, and deliver those meals individually and sustainably packaged to the food pantries in our area. And that way it's kind of a win-win. And at the time they were individually packaged because COVID had gathering restrictions tied to it. So we had to make everything much more individual. So we started doing that. And then as we evolved, we've plugged in with a local donation network that includes the Food Bank of Delaware and Epworth United Methodist Church and the Lewis Farmers Market and local grocery stores and things like that, where we get donations from. And we get donations from the people that we deliver to, like CRC and Rehoboth, when they have bulk items that none of their clients are going to take, like huge cans of beans or ketchup or whatever. No person that comes to the food pantry looking for a meal is going to take a huge vat of ketchup, but we'll take it and we'll make something out of it. So
hey Teresa, maybe I will invite you back when Jerry and Chad from Food Bank of Delaware are maybe sharing some of their work. I know you work in collaboration with both Food Bank of Delaware and Epworth. So I'll definitely have you back to pitch in and share more of your story. But please, thank you so much for your work. And please, folks, check out their website. And I will put the link in the chat. But for now, I will like to move on to the panelists. We are very, very excited to have people from all walks of faces. Like, we have Bridget Gregory from Delaware. She's the Delaware Community Composting Program Director with Zero Waste Delaware. We have Michael Chases from University of Delaware. He's working on a pilot with schools on creating a biogas facility. And we'll talk more about his program. Then we have Chad Robinson, Director of External Affairs with Food Bank of Delaware, Jerry Boisley. So we will have a great discussion about what is going on in Delaware. So we know that food waste, as Teresa rightly said, nationwide, actually, we are having a huge amount of food wasted. Up to 40% of the food that we produce is being wasted, going straight to landfill. And I think the number is pretty mind-boggling. 165 billion with a B dollar of food wasted every year in America, while millions of people face food insecurity. And it is happening at every level, right? It's happening in every state, the same stats. We're wasting the same level of food in our homes, in our schools, in our churches. So how do we change it? How do we make the change? So let's learn from people who are trying to create change in our community and try to adapt some of those practices and behavioral change in our everyday life. So I'm going to stop my screen now and invite our first panelist, Bridget. So I'll bring you over, Bridget. And Teresa will hear more from you in a little bit. Bridget, I've made you a co-host, so you should be able to.
I see. Thank you. All right, let's see. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, so my name is Bridget Gregory, and as Shweta said, I am the program director for the Delaware Community Composting Initiative, which is a program of Zero Waste First State, or also known as Plastic Free Delaware. In my work, our goal is to reduce food waste going to the landfill by doing education events and outreach, whether it is at public tabling events or one-on-one presentations like something like this, or at schools. But we also do encourage community composting, and we work with groups and organizations that are interested in starting community composting at their site. We help them with providing all the technical assistance with getting a community composting site started at their site, and help them with attaining a permit from DNREC, because in the state of Delaware, you are required to have a permit if you are doing any kind of composting beyond a backyard composting of food scraps. So right now we are in our first year. We're very excited. I am working with 6 partners that are getting ready to submit applications to DNREC to get their community composting sites up and running this spring, summer. Very exciting time. If you have questions, I'm happy to chat, but Shweta asked me to put together a couple slides real quickly to discuss some impacts of food waste. So really big picture, as you know, Shweta was just saying, EPA estimates, and this is from, I think, 2021, that they are also using the word food lost or wasted. I found that really interesting. Food lost or wasted during all stages of the food supply chain range from 161 to 335 billion pounds per year. And this is just in the US. So striking numbers here. Nationally, food waste occurs at different levels, as Shweta was saying, but 42% is happening at households and 40% is happening at retail and restaurants. Those are the largest percentages there. The average family throws out $1,500 of produce annually, or $1,500 worth of food annually. And that is not just wasting the food, right? It's wasting the water and the energy and the land resources that has gone into this. So why should we care, right? Globally, if food waste could be represented as its own country, it would be the 3rd largest greenhouse gas emitter behind China and the United States. So not only, again, is it wasting resources and calories that could be consumed by people who are food insecure, but it's creating a huge greenhouse gas emission problem. In the US alone, the amount of food waste that is being produced is embodies about the same amount of greenhouse gas emissions that are related to about 42 coal power plants, which is a really striking, depressing number, but hopefully here we will be able to come up with some solutions to prevent this. And again, further impacts of wasted food. So wasted food accounts for about 14% of all the freshwater use in the US, 18% of our cropland, 4% of the greenhouse gas emissions, and as was mentioned, 24% of our landfill input. In Delaware, that's about 25%. So just to give you a quick idea of what this 18% of the cropland use is, this is a map of the US and what the land use is across the US. And so that little brown square is our cropland usage. So roughly 18% would be about 2 states worth of this brown section here, which is totally being wasted. So let's create a connection between the food waste and the food insecurity paradox here. For anybody who's unfamiliar, food insecurity is the act of not knowing when or how you will pay for or acquire your next meal. This is a major issue across the country and across the globe. And in Delaware, to give you kind of a local look, 1 in 10 people face hunger and 1 in 7 children face hunger in the state. And so knowing that we have a large surplus of food that's happening in our state as well as nationally, I'm very excited to talk about solutions, right, that we can combat these issues with. So this is a hierarchy that the Institute for Local Self-Reliance has put together. The EPA has a similar model, but we starts with the most ideal would be source reduction and prevention at the top, then enabling food rescue and feeding people or animals as much as possible. We've got composting and digestion systems as well. And of course, at the bottom, we have our landfill and incinerators because we don't want to feed those. So yeah, and I believe all of the panelists will be talking about some of these solutions here tonight. So thank you. And I will pass it back to you, Shweta.
Thank you so much, Bridget. That was really great. And I think that's really kick us in the right direction, gives us some basic facts, and give us the big picture. And now I would like to invite our next guest. And folks, if you have any questions for our speakers, please put them in the chat and we will take them at the end. We have a bulk of time at the end saved for just your questions. So I'll now invite Michael Chases from University of Delaware. And I'm very excited. I don't really know much about this pilot, but just from my own experience, I know I have 2 kids in school right now, and just with personal experience, I know how much food gets wasted in schools. And we, any one of us who have children know if children are not watched closely, they will just, they'll touch and then throw, right? So there is lots of food that gets wasted at school level. So I'm very excited about the solution that Michael, you're working on at the school level, just thinking about how, what are the possibilities of having such a pilot become successful and having that implemented at lots of Delaware schools and not only in Delaware, but all over the country. So take it away, Michael. We are very keen to learn about the pilot.
Thanks, Shweta. And thank you, Bridget, for starting the conversation. So this is a project that I'll lead you through a little bit. It's really primarily the PhD research of Rachel Birch, who's a student of Professor Cha and myself, and give you a little bit of background. It deals with what we call aerobic biodigesters. And there's lots of interesting aspects, as Shweta mentioned, of getting it into school. So the problem is really, so I will say that if we saw that pyramid, obviously the best thing to do, as we know, is to eliminate food waste or to find ways of, if we can, of repurposing the food immediately. So we're sort of a little lower down on the pyramid. But as was described, there's a lot of resources that go into producing food. And what we're trying to do is recover them. And also this program was motivated largely by the Delaware Solid Waste Authority. So let me jump through a couple slides and I'll touch on a whole bunch of things. I am really, as Shweta said, I'm excited about the part that by moving it into the school system and making children aware of it, it has multiple different uses, including educational uses just around the general topic of sustainability. And hopefully, we would really like to reduce the amount of food waste. So as we've all said, big food waste issue about how much food is wasted in this last pie chart. This idea that a large bulk of the material going to our landfill as food waste was very concerning to the Solid Waste Authority, because we only have one large landfill in Delaware. We really will probably never be able to site another one. So if that one ever runs out of space, it's a real problem. So they realized that, and they were weighing trucks saying, look at all these organics. So organics make up probably 40% of the pie, half of it is food waste. And they said, we need to figure out a way to not have this food waste come to the landfill. So, once we have food waste, that's where this project is coming in. And again, we'd really like to eliminate or reduce the food waste. But the issue is we have food waste. The last thing we want to do is just dump it in a landfill, because it leads to these greenhouse gas emissions. We don't have enough land coverage. It leaches out into our water if we're not handling it properly, and if we get leachate that has to be treated regardless that comes out. So it creates a problem to put it in the landfill. So the solution that the Delaware Solid Waste Authority was toying with was they had gone around and seen lots of different possibilities. Out west, they do large scale composting. We know that in Delaware, we had an attempt to do a large scale composting, and it created large odor issues. That was sort of scrapped for the time being. Local composting is great, but they thought that site-specific aerobic biodigesters might be a solution. So let me tell you what those are. This is an example. It looks very much like the size of a dishwasher, the size of a maybe larger freezer. This is one variety of them. There are numerous companies that make them. And what happens is the food waste goes in here instead of into the trash. And you add microbes into this. It's relatively small, so it fits into most industrial kitchens. We're looking at primarily large food waste facilities like cafeterias. There's one in Caesarati Dining Hall at UD, which is probably the largest point source food waste in the state of Delaware, because we have so many students who eat there. And we've put one in at the Tower Hill School as a pilot program. For a while, we had one we had one here at Grotto's Pizza as we were testing it out on site. So they're relatively small. They're installed where the food waste is produced, and it eliminates a lot of things like transportation of the food waste. So it's all dealt with at that point. And what happens is the food waste gets loaded into this digester. Capacity is about 500 pounds a day, which is quite a lot for most facilities. It could be at a grocery, it could be at a hotel. Carnival Cruise Lines uses these, and they're up at Lincoln Financial Field. So they use them there as well. The microbes then in this machine, it churns around a little bit, but what really happens is the microbes break down the food, and eventually you get out a liquid digestate. So there's two options, and this is sort of a schematic of what's going in. You have this pack of dry microbes. It goes into here. These little wheel things are where the microbes live. So they're a little protected on plastic wheels, and they mingle in this area with some paddles that just turn it up a little. There's water in there, and it breaks down the food relatively quickly into that digestate. And so there's two options. The first option is to then just send that digestate through our normal wastewater transportation system, which at least doesn't take trucks taking it to the landfill, emitting greenhouse gases. It gets there, and then they can treat that easily at the landfill. And so, at the wastewater treatment facility. So they also sometimes have ability to recover the nutrients, but typically they will treat that like normal effluents that go down, and so it does not go into the landfill. So as a first step, the Delaware Solid Waste Authority would much prefer that this is where the waste goes. What we're trying to do is really recover the valuable components of it. So you can get biogas out of it, you can get fertilizer out of it, you can recycle the water. There's lots of constituents that went into growing our foods, and we can recover that. So that's our real ambition, is to recover the energy that went back into it and the other things. So that's a secondary step of our research. So what we did was we partnered with Tower Hill, also for the idea of the science behind this is interesting. So we have biology teachers and chemistry teachers and sustainability sort of teachers putting parts of this into their curriculum to make students aware of the problem and how science can be used to solve problems. So here's a picture of us installing the digester February of 2022 at Tower Hill. So you can see they're not very large. You do need, in restaurants, sometimes space is very confined in restaurants, but it doesn't need a large footprint. So it can fit in most restaurants, certainly in bigger kitchens. It goes in, it gets hooked up to the drainage system there. this is a pack of the microbes, this powder looking thing. It has these plastic wheels inside that you can see. And as I go down, you'll see these plastic wheels just where the microbes attach themselves and live. And then this is Cole, who is running this project for us. He did research in the lab and he is on site watching what happens. So this is sort of adding the food to it. And then one of the issues you have to deal with is how do you get the students? And this is one place, as Shweta mentioned, where you can get some awareness of food waste, because the students have to scrape their food waste into certain buckets that then get taken in there. So I hope one hope of it is that gradually, as they see how much food is being wasted, they become more aware of that. Maybe you make competitions to tell them, look, we want to minimize how much food we have to put in the digester. We certainly don't want people to feel this is a great solution and therefore just waste all your food and just feed the digester. We want to probably say, let's see how much we can starve the digester and how little amount of food we can put in there. But when it does go in there, at least it doesn't end up having a truck to come pick it up and then dumping it in the landfill. So that's sort of an overview. Delaware Solid Waste was funding this project. Rachel got some support through our Delaware Environmental Institute on campus. Our Center for Food Systems Sustainability on campus gave us some support. And then most recently, Delaware Beautiful, and they're trying to create a grant program to help other to answer whatever questions you have.
Wow, thank you so much. That is very, very fascinating, and lots of great things in there involving young people, having them measuring how much food waste is happening, because when you notice, then you realize, and the goal should not be feeding the digester, but goal is to reduce that food waste in the first place. So lots of great points there. So thank you so much, Michael, for that presentation. And I'm sure there'll be more questions. And I know this is we have this big giant biogas situation here in Sussex, but I feel like these are two different things. But hopefully we can clear that out. So I'm going to now invite our third panelist, Chad Robinson from Food Bank of Delaware. And I got really excited when I heard about this new food app to collect, to rescue food. And I am looking forward to learning that from Chad. If I can find that. And yep. Welcome, Chad.
Hi.
And so thank you so much for your time this evening, and would love for you to share about what's happening at Food Bank of Delaware. And now I know you are very aware of the food insecurity that's going on, and I'm sure you are appalled by the amount of food that is wasted in our state. And please talk about the recently launched app and everything that you're doing at Food Bank of Delaware.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Ashwita, very much. And to everyone on the call tonight, certainly pleasure to be with you this evening and to talk a little bit about what we're doing at the food bank as it relates to food waste. We are keenly aware of the food waste that's happening, across our state. I think it's been mentioned already that obviously we produce enough food in this country for everyone to eat and not to have an issue of hunger and food insecurity. But oftentimes it is a matter of getting that food from where it is produced to the hands of folks that need it. For us at the food bank, we are trying to do more traditional food recovery in items that come in to our location from grocery stores, food distributors, and the like, that might be, reaching the end of its usable life in the store. So when we're talking about things like produce or meats, dairy items, and things like that, we're working with all of the grocers in the state that we're picking up those items from their locations, in some cases multiple times a week, or maybe once a week, depending on what their needs are, so that we can take those items and get them then back out to folks that need them. Our organization is blessed with the infrastructure to be able to do that. So the fleet, the facilities to be able to bring that food back and then get it immediately back out the door to those that need it. The same is true on what I would generally call when I was working in retail back in the day, the reclamations, when you pulled the things that maybe the box was torn, or the bag was slightly ripped or something like that. The can was dented. You pulled those things off the shelf and they went to a box in the back room, if you will. And so we're also recapturing those things as well, that are still fit for human consumption. That the items aren't negatively impacted the food itself, and it can go back out to those that need it. So we're recapturing that as well. When we get donations, we're working with the FDA and USDA extended life guidelines for food. So I'm sure all of you on this call are familiar with the print on dates that we see on our food in the store. We see that date printed on the bottom of the can or the box or whatnot. USDA has extended life guidelines on much of that food product, those non-perishable food items, canned goods, boxed items, cereal, the like, for how long those items are good past that print on date. So when donations come into our facility, we are checking those donations to those extended life guidelines. So we're not disposing of something just because it's past the print on date. If it's maybe a can of beans or whatever, or something of that nature, it might be good for 3 to 6 months, or in some cases years past that print on date. So we're using those, again, still fit for human consumption, still okay, but making sure that we can utilize that food for as long as we can to get it out to folks that need it, so it doesn't end up in a landfill. So all of those are what I would call traditional routes. We're doing that, but we're also working with our network of hunger relief partners statewide. These are food pantries, food closets, soup kitchens, child nutrition sites, senior nutrition sites up and down the state. We have partner agencies through a program we call Sister Share that are picking up those donations in our place, if you will. It helps in multiple ways. One, it gets that donation picked up. Two, it also gets it to the end user faster. So that local pantry, that church food closet, or that community center's pantry might be, right in that community. They might be going over to the Food Lion or the Giant or whatever it is right in their local community, picking up that donation for us, getting it back so it can get out faster. Think about that when we're talking about produce and things of that nature. Anytime that we can get that used quicker is a positive, and get it out before, again, it reaches the end of its usable life. Shweta mentioned briefly 302 Food Rescue. So this is the new app that we've started in collaboration with Bay Health and the American Heart Association to, again, utilize volunteers that are interested in engaging and helping get food to those that need it. So sometimes we have, again, grocery stores, food distributors, others where we might not have a person, our organization or a partner that's able to go pick up at that place. We don't want that food to go to waste. So 302 Food Rescue is very similar to like a DoorDash, if you will, if you think about it, where that food distributor, that grocery store, that shop goes on, signs up, they're able to tap into the app and say, I have a box of items that need to be picked up. I have produce that's sitting here that I want to donate. So they ping it into the app. Basically, the app then pings you or me or whoever signed up as a volunteer and say, hey, are you able to go pick up this item at this particular store? You say yes, you accept that pickup. It gives you the directions where to go to pick all of that up, and then where to take it once you've picked it up. So our hope is that as we look at food deserts and other places across the state where we don't have as good of access as we would like, that we can engage volunteers and community partners in making sure that we can, thanks Shuita for putting that in the chat, I appreciate that, that we can engage those folks to go to those stores, go to those places and pick up that food and get it into the hands of people that need it. And that we don't have to be, if we can't get there, we don't have a partner in the area, that we're not, again, missing out on that food product. So that's an exciting addition to, again, ensuring that food hopefully doesn't end up in the landfill, and a great way for people to get involved in doing that. It's our hope that we can work with smaller stores. So, the local of donating in that way, because it's just maybe one or two individuals that run the little shop, and they've just thought, oh, we don't have the time for that. Well, now they don't have to worry about it. All they got to do is ping it into the app, say, hey, we've got this, a volunteer is going to come pick it up, and then they don't need to worry about it after that, because the app's going to help the person that's picking it up know where to take it and all that. So all of that in hopes that we're doing our part to make sure that we can get food to those that need it, and in doing so, that we can help to curb food waste across the state. I could go on and on about other things that we're doing and trying to work with schools and the like, but I'll leave that to others and to questions later if there are any. But those are just a couple things that we're doing to try to address food waste across the state. So thank you all.
Thank you so much, Chad. And I'm sure there will be more questions from people on some way how people can get more involved with Food Bank of Delaware and others. But thank you so much. And now I will invite our last panelist, Jerry Boisley from, she is the food rescue coordinator, if I'm saying it right, for Epworth Church. And it gives me great pleasure to bring her here. And Jerry was there on our webinar on food waste a few years ago. So I'm just so glad to have you back, Jerry. And I'm just amazed at the amazing work Epworth is doing. It's just unbelievable. So very proud of the work that your team is doing and what you've accomplished over the years. And you are a shining example to to other faith communities all around the state and probably the country, and what a role model. So I want you to share your story, and just amazing what you have achieved so far. So I'm going to share the slide whenever you ask me to, but take it away.
You can go ahead, Shweta, and share.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having us on tonight. So my name is Jerry Boisley. I have been the volunteer food rescue coordinator at Epworth United Methodist Church here in Rehoboth Beach for the last 10 years. Our program is 10 years young. We realized back 10 years ago that you can share the next one, Shweta.
Yep.
If you want to, scroll up. So basically, what is food rescue? We decided that food rescue, there was definitely an issue with food rescue. All of you have shared tonight the statistics of food rescue and food waste and the greenhouse gases that it contributes to in the environment. And so we decided that we wanted to do something about it. And basically the food that gets thrown away there's such a great amount of it that can be donated to, for cooking, for general produce, that people who are food insecure realize that how much is wasted can be really used. So we decided to create this program. And if you could share the next slide.
Sorry.
So
Am I
this is
doing the good right order, or
yeah, you're good. You're good. Yeah. So this is basically what we decided to do. We were offered 2 cases of green beans from Pfeiffer's Market, 10 years ago, and we didn't realize they were cases of green beans. We thought, oh, well, they just have extra green beans. They're going to send them to Epworth. We're going to cook with them in our food kitchen. And we received 2 cases of green beans. So we realized that there was a lot out there that was wasted. So we started tracking our incoming rescues from 2017. And as you can see, these are the pounds of food that we actually went out and rescued. So we started in 2017 with 44,981. And last year we collected 389,578 pounds of food that would have been dumpster bound. All of that is definitely, it's predominantly produce. There are meats involved. There's also dried goods involved. And basically what we have 53 current volunteers that I have this program who are very dedicated to the program. We collect from 17 donors and we give to 15 recipients. 3 of those recipients are food programs within Epworth. When COVID started, we created a mobile food pantry. So all of the vegetables and fruits that came in from rescue go on special racks that are then pushed out to the outside where people drive through, and they're able to have their choice of fresh fruits and vegetables. The majority of people, we had 96 people the other day that drove through our mobile pantry. That was a really, really high number. Those were kind of the numbers that we were seeing when COVID first hit. But we're very glad to be able to have this produce to be able to give to people who are food insecure. They also, Shweta, would you share the next slide? Oh, and sorry, in that slide, I'm trying to remember the gentleman from Delaware Food Bank, Chad.
Yes.
Yeah, Chad. So at the bottom of your app, you have a formula where you can actually find out how many carbon emissions you've saved. Right? There's a formula that you can multiply the saved food number of pounds, and you multiply it by a number. So
yes, I believe it is. I don't have that right off, but yes, I believe you're right. Yep.
Yeah, I went ahead and did that for our pounds that we'd saved in total. And so for the carbon emissions that Epworth has saved currently, that's the number on the bottom. It's 781.82 carbon emissions that we have saved from the environment. So I don't know how that translates, but it seems like a big number to me. And so I'm really proud of that number, that we're, reducing our carbon footprint 1 pound at a time with Epworth's food rescue program. So Shweta, you can go on to the next one. So basically, this is our, incoming delivery is picked. We have a Sign Up Genius program where volunteers actually go ahead and they sign up for the different places that we rescue from, and the incoming delivery is brought in. It's weighed. All the weights are recorded in a database, and then all the boxes go to a sorting station. Where our volunteers continue to, every bit of food that comes in is actually processed by hand. So we go through box by box, strawberry by strawberry. If we get a box of strawberries, we go through the ones that are salvageable. The rest go into a farm program. So they're all given to cows up at the Rustic Acres Farms, which is up the road from us. Okay, you can go ahead. So here's the process of our sorting, and our goal is, of course, minimum waste. And all these products go to the three different programs within our church. So there's the Food and Love Soup Kitchen, 6 rotating teams of people cook, and the meals are distributed on Sunday. They go out on our Sunday mobile pantry. We have mobile pantry 3 days a week where people can come to the church and they can pick up food. So the folks prepare with the incoming, all the produce that comes in. The people who are those 6 rotating teams actually create the meals on Sunday, which then go to Food Insecure that come through the drive-through. The Good Samaritans Pantry, they have mobile pantry racks. So they create all of the dried goods that come in and all of the things that people who are in SNAP and the low-income housing projects programs can't have. Like they can't have toilet paper, personal products. They can't have paper towels. They can't buy a cooked chicken. They can only get a regular chicken. They can't buy a fresh sandwich. They have to make their sandwiches, but they can buy chips and soda. So to me, it's such a horrible imbalance as to what people can buy on SNAP programs when people are so struck with food insecurity. Then the recipient boxes that are go to our recipients are actually packed on the other side, and then whatever we can't use, even the scraps from the kitchen, are actually sent up to the farm and given to the cows so that nothing goes in the dumpster. You can send the next one. So how can you help? Reduce food waste at home, repurpose your leftovers, plan ahead before you shop, educate yourself on food waste, because a lot of people don't realize what food waste is. They have no idea what goes on in the country or in the state about the amount of food waste. Use websites for ideas to repurpose scraps, like the savethefood.com. There's a lot of great, the Tasty Bite blog. It's a really great app that they have great ideas for saving food waste. Compost, teach your children early. If we don't teach the next generation, we're in trouble now. I can't even imagine what the next generation is going to be facing with food waste. And support your service in person or financial donations to the local pantries and to the local people who are trying to prevent food waste in this state. Okay, Shweta. Those are apples that I created applesauce out of, by the way. And then do you all know that there's a brand new food? It's called, the Bill Emerson's Food Safety Act was something that was created in 1996 through Clinton. Bill Clinton passed that food law. These are laws that we take to grocery stores with us and present these to the people that potentially will donate, so that they realize that there's no liability attached when you provide to people in good faith. Just recently in January, it was the 5th, not the 9th, there's a new food law passed by President Biden called the Food Donation Improvement Act. And it basically has given more liability, releases from liability for donations by nonprofits, people who will donate to nonprofits. So grocery stores, restaurants, the small mom and pop stores, anybody that is afraid of liability. When you give in good faith, these laws protect you from any liability and repercussions that will come back on you. And we really rely on those when we go to solicit grocery stores. So, go ahead, Shweta. You can show the last one. So for me, these are all pieces of food that have come into our food rescue program, and every single one of them, as you can see, has a heart on it. So, we need to love what we get, what's being wasted, and use it and don't waste it. And Dalai Lama says it's our collective individual responsibility to preserve and tend to the world in which we all live. And we firmly believe that at Epworth. And that's why, we're continuing our food rescue ministry, and just the volunteers and the people who receive from us are so grateful. And as I said, we've been doing this for over 10 years now, and we've grown tremendously. We're outgrowing our little tiny room, our space. We have boxes piled up along the ceiling. When we have an incoming, we have Giant Millville is one of our donors. We can have easily over 1,500 pounds of food come in from them. We collect every day of the week, and we have 3 grocery stores and that donate regularly to us, along with little shops and Outback, Panera, Chick-fil-A, Chipotle, Wawa. And, without the volunteers and without the dedication that we have, we wouldn't be able to run this program efficiently. So I grew up giving, getting food. My mom would go to the grocery store. First place we would go would be to the discount rack at the back of the store, where they have a potato with, a bad potato in it, and we would just buy the whole bag. Now grocery stores are throwing out that whole bag of food. Instead of, we take it and we separate the bad one out, give it to the cows, and then we realize we can use all the rest. And so that's what awareness, that's the kind of awareness people have to start bringing to grocery stores, to stop throwing away all this food and donate it. So,
But thank you so
that's our
much,
story.
Jerry. It's such a heartwarming story, and it just shows that we have the power to come together and change things at our level, and collectively there's just so much possible. That those numbers that you showed are mind-boggling. Through more than close to 400,000 pounds of food a year. It's no joke. So thank you so much for that continued work. I added Teresa here because I know you work together. And sorry, Teresa, I had interrupted when you were talking, but this is your time to add how you are working together with Epworth on some of your sustainability initiatives.
Sure. I'll just take right from where I left off. And as we evolved from, taking donations from the gardens that we have out in our community and other donations, we linked up with Jerry and the Epworth Food Pantry. And now the bulk of goods that we get to cook the meals that we cook comes from Epworth. I mean, really, they get so much, and why try to reinvent the wheel? They're already getting it. They have much more storage than we do. And so once a week, actually twice a week now, Jerry, twice a week, we get maybe many times more. It depends on what comes in. We get donations from Jerry. We take and cook as much as we possibly can. And then what we can't use, we pass on down to the line to places in Georgetown, in Seaford, who can help feed their populations in need as well. So yeah, we just, the circle of giving locally here, make sure that it all ends up in some hungry belly, whether it's people or cows or not the landfill.
Thank you so much. Incredible work. And and we need to know about these local efforts, right, that we can join wherever we are. So your two great initiatives in Sussex, and so folks who are joining, who would like to know more, will be following up with your information so they can get in touch with you to learn more. I'm going to add the other panelists now. So folks, if you have question, you can, if you want to unmute yourself, you can unmute yourself and ask. And panelists, if you want to just put on your videos, so that way I can just add a spotlight here. So you can be seen on the screen. So great presentations by everyone, and I'm just so excited. I feel like, if we could just make these changes that we have in our panelists today, change at, bring changes at the school level, rescue food through some of these great organizational efforts that we have going. If we can have more community composting done at smaller scales throughout the state, all these are just such great community examples of how we can change behavior and just work collaboratively to address some of these issues. And I join Michael. So let me see. I know Michael, you have addressed some of the questions already. Donna, do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Biogas is a real red flag for me. And because I've been reading a whole lot about it. And of course, Shweta, that we've had the Food and Water Watch issue down in Sussex County with the biogas issue down there with anaerobic digesters at the chicken farms.
Yes.
And so, I mean, I would like to see more emphasis put on what like Epworth is doing than, than throwing our I don't know what the word is.
Yep.
Throwing our emphasis on the biogas issue, because I posted something I read from ProPublica today about biogas and the carcinogens that, I mean, it's still a greenhouse gas, okay? So, I mean, we're really not doing ourselves any favors if we throw ourselves into that particular solution. I think there are other solutions to this particular problem that are more environmentally friendly than depending on turning it into biogas. Okay, so that's just my comment. Sorry.
Thanks, Donna. I know where you're coming from. I know, and I'm not sure, Michael, if you are plugged into that bigger biogas facility, which Donna is talking about. Yeah. But I can see the difference. But I'd like you to answer that question, and then I'll plug in my point.
Sure, and it's not so. Carcinogens are not my specialty. I was doing some looking here. It's obviously a valid concern. I've followed the Southern Delaware a little bit. I think, there are many other concerns there about trucks in neighborhoods and noise and lots of different things. In our case, that, I would hope that I would hope we would eventually, I admit that the first step is to not waste the food. But the question becomes, if you do have large amounts of food waste or some amount of food waste, what are you going to do with it? So if we can eliminate that, then there's no reason to have a digester, because there's no food waste. And if we can repurpose it and use it, we have found on campus that, if you're composting at home, it's fine. When campus does large scale composting, we honestly cannot find people to take it. So we compost and we get all this stuff from our clippings and our other things. And so we get so much compost that it's a challenge. So I think, from what I'm seeing in my quick look at literature, the carcinogen issue, there are people out there who say solar panels cause cancer. And if you track it back, okay, it doesn't. I'm sure if you unregulated burn biogas in a bad way, you will do that. But controlled anaerobic digesters, I think, actually contain that stuff. And what I can see, I think you could probably safely do it. It doesn't mean that it won't impact your neighborhood. People say that they really smell. The other side says they don't smell. I think until you have one, I guess you find out what the issues are. I appreciate the issue of, I don't want a lot of trucks pulling poultry manure through my neighborhood. Although, to be honest, we need to find something to do with the poultry manure. So I don't know the solution. But I think in the food waste, it's a little easier once it turns into this liquid, and maybe it can actually be transported through piping networks. If a town did it and they, we're trying to do it locally. So like, for instance, if the town of Newark did it and the restaurants were hooked up and they could pump it somewhere, and it could be a little anaerobic digester. But I grant you, it has to fulfill the regulations that the EPA set out for these things. And if they have regulations that say carcinogens are going to be, we have to measure them, then they have to satisfy that. And I think we have to rely on their abilities to tell us what those things are, and they need to be regulated. So I think.
Thank you, Michael. I think you covered all the points that I was saying. That differentiates this is that it's smaller scale. It can be, decentralized and done in a smaller scale. So we're not loading up stuff from different directions and bringing it to one. And I think the other thing with the other biogas facility was the environmental justice community concerns, which is not addressed in that. But so I think there are two kind of a different one, but I think Donna's concern was valid just because
Oh, yeah.
why are we creating this problem in the first place? But it is happening in those areas. And so first definitely is why can't we just donate a lot of food and then leftover food can be tackled with this biogas project. So that was good question, Donna. Is there any other questions that anybody else want to share? Maybe I did. Reverend Jean, would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Well, excuse me, I asked Michael about the cost of having a digester in the school or in a church or a community center, the energy costs and maintenance cost. I'm also interested if and why not the residual solids and liquids couldn't be put directly into the school or church or community gardens as fertilizer.
Yeah, so there are some, it doesn't work well to put it directly in, so there needs to be a little treatment of it before you put it in, but there are definitely ways you can turn it into fertilizer, but it actually has some first of all, there's just some, and I'm not fluent with what's in there, but people want to, there's certain things in there that you want to kill and not put directly in. So it actually won't be a great thing to dump straight in. You have to do a little processing of it.
So how does it compare with the home digesters that are being advertised? Do you know?
I'm not familiar with the home digesters. I mean, are those different? I didn't know.
They're ways of using aeration in food for over a period of 4 days. In some cases, they advertise 4 hours for making soil that can be used directly as into house plants or into the local garden.
Are they, I mean, I'm not familiar with those, and I suppose.
Okay. I was just wondering.
Yeah. I mean, it seems, it seems like that's a speeded up composting process that we're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering the residuals, to what degree, how do they compare us in terms of the fertilizing potential?
Right. Yeah.
Because I've used myself, for decades, I had a separate Vitamix container and I put everything into the Vitamix container and I buried it in my garden.
Yeah.
Or put it directly into my compost. So there's a variety of ways in which we've all tried to do it responsibly.
Right.
And I'm just wondering, because a digester of that size might be just perfect for a community garden, if in fact the residuals could benefit the garden.
Right. I'm happy to, if you send me an email, Jean,
Yes.
I'm happy to talk to the people who are turning into fertilizer. I know I've talked to them. I might have the information to be able to say, I've just been told that the digest state should really be treated a little bit before it's just dumped into the.
Sure. Who knows what the pH and everything is? I understand.
Yeah. But it's definitely a valuable constituent that we'd like to use for that way. And if you can do it on site, that would be obviously much better than trying to process it and use it somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Are there any other questions for any of our panelists here? Because I have some.
I think Dee has her hand.
All right, Dee.
Shweta, thanks. I was just going to respond to the conversation that just took place because, Michael, I spoke with a contact from one of the big banks in Wilmington. I guess maybe I shouldn't mention their name, but just last week, and they are looking at, apparently they've done tons of research and they're looking at putting in a biodigester in their building. But I got the impression from him that it just turns out, a material that can be put on a garden, and they're not looking at the model that goes out into the septic system, sewer system. So I'd love to find out more about that. They apparently did extensive research on it, but he's sort of looking for a nearby community garden that he might be able to donate what comes out of it to. So we were having that conversation. So anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there that
thank you.
All the research he's done didn't seem to indicate an issue with taking that path.
Okay, and I'm sure they've tested it, so that's wonderful.
So
Yeah,
I would
we can
just
find out more about it.
follow up with both of those things. I've actually used one of those home digesters that you're talking about, Jean. I was piloting it with the Cesar Rodney School District. They're hoping to, they have a couple of them that they are letting students take home and borrow and do science experiments with, essentially. And it's a great way to start talking about, food waste and monitoring that. And they're doing waste audits and all that. What they do is produce, instead of like a liquid at the end, you end up with a really dried out dirt, essentially. But it still would need, because it still has, theoretically, all the pathogens and things have died because it gets to a really, really high heat. But it's extremely nitrogenous material, so it would need to be combined with soil at a right quantity to be used on site. But you can use them, so I know that's probably a lot different from what Michael is talking about, because there's probably a lot of pathogens and other things that need to be eliminated before using. But yeah.
Thank you, Bridget.
Sounds good. Janet, I'm sorry if I mispronounced.
Yes, yeah, Jeanette.
Jeanette.
Bridget, I wondered if there are any planned community composting units in Sussex County now, and where and when will they start activity?
Thank you. I apologize, because I should have included my normal slides, and I just didn't think about that. So I do not, unfortunately, have any sites in Sussex. So if someone is interested in starting a site in Sussex, please, please, please reach out. Right now, I have 5 to 6 partners in Newcastle. I have 1 in Kent and none in Sussex. So I've done a couple presentations, but no one's bit yet. So all I need for a potential partner is 1+ person to manage the site, a physical location, so like a church or a community center, school, and some people who are interested in getting involved, really. And then after that, we can take it away.
So Bridget, do you want to add, do you have any, if there was, there was a willing site, maybe a church or any facility that wants to host, have their own composting site, how can you help? Can you just quickly walk down that process?
Sure. So again, we provide the technical assistance. So all the training and education that goes into it, I think a lot of times people have a perception about composting, what that is. Backyard is a little bit different than community. So when we're talking about community, we're talking about 40-ish households. At least our sites are around 40 households that they can handle. I'm going to share a picture real quick, Shweta, if you don't mind. Let's see. Okay, there we go. So this is the rendering of our site that's going to be at the Halliday Park in Brandywine in Wilmington. And this is a community site that is actually going to be mine as our kind of proof of concept. And essentially it's about a 20 by 20 square foot spot. We have bins here to collect for brown storage. We have kind of a tool shed here. And then the crux of our composting sites are really a 3-bin system here. And so what we do is I will come to your site. We will assess and decide what space on your site is the best to do a composting. If you already have a composting site, great. I can still work with you. If there's, you want to take it to the next level, you have some questions about it, I'm happy to come out and work with you on it. But this is kind of like our standard sites. So the 3-bin system is a flowing system. So you're constantly being able to feed it, process it, and then let it cure and then use it. I know that Michael mentioned, a lot of times an issue with composting is that there's not a need for the finished product. So with these sites, it's completely up to the partner organization what you do with the finished product. Oftentimes it's given back to members who bring their food scraps to the site, or it can be used on site at the facility. We're producing a much smaller amount than a commercial or even mid-size facility. So it's not going to be a ton of material at the end because during the composting process, you reduce your total volume by like a third. So again, we assist with all the training, helping make sure everybody understands what's happening. We assist with the labor because there is a labor component with this, right? So we do need people out here helping, bringing their food scraps, and we only accept fruit and vegetable food scraps, eggshells, coffee grinds and filters, and tea bags. So no meat, no dairy, none of the things that can go into the digester. We just want the pure stuff for the ground. And our goal here is to do aerobic composting, so hot composting. So we do need water and air, and for air, we're going to need using shovels and pitchforks to turn the material about once a week, twice a week. So it does require some volunteer hours and labor, but what we do is provide you all the tools and resources and data tracking mechanisms and provide as many resources as possible to make it equitable for everyone. So there's a job for everybody, whether you're somebody who's capable of lifting, you know, a lot of the material, or if you can just sit there and record what's going on, take some observations. There's temperature monitoring, things like that. It doesn't require a ton of work once you get it started, but about 1 or 2 hours of volunteer work a week.
Thank you. And I will include Bridget's information when I follow up. So any of you are interested in working on a site, there is assistance available. You know, there's technical assistance. So do you also have any bit of funding for or other support that you provide to people who are willing to work on a site?
Yeah. So the sites typically run between $1,000 to $2,000, but once you have that initial investment, it's pretty much cost free. So we do work on funding to support as much as possible, and we're trying to provide everyone some assistance. The other option is also partnering with like another outside group. So some of our sites are working with either Boy Scout troop or Girl Scout troop or the Eagle Scout, who part of their work is providing some funding and also helping with the construction of the materials at the site. So that's always a great way as well. But yes, we assist with that.
Thank you so much. This was very helpful. And the idea of having these dialogues is not just coming in, listening to these great ideas, but we want our community to really go back and think about how can we implement some of these great ideas. So I also encourage people who are listening to this webinar to, if you are connected with a faith community, especially to think about how you replicate what Epworth is doing. I think they have a phenomenal model that is working for last decade. Let's try to replicate that and let's learn from them. And I'm happy to facilitate that, knowledge transfer. And I'd love to see more faith communities really look at how they're doing this incredible work. I really feel that our faith communities are in the forefront. They help the communities even when they're impacted by climate change, but also help communities become resilient in some of, when it comes to these resiliency efforts. So there's a lot that we can do collectively. So thank you so much. I would like to just go around and quickly ask each of you to just close us with a last thought that you have for everybody who's attending here. So Jerry, I'll start with you. Any last thought that you want to, a last piece of advice or any important information that you want to part with? in the closing?
We're always very willing to have people come and see what we do at Epworth. And we're also very interested in having other faith communities who are interested in starting a food rescue program come and see, and so we can also teach them what we've learned over the last 10 years. It's been a big growing process for us. But we have it down pat now. We really know what we're doing, and we really can get it done very quickly. Reverend Jean, I'm sorry that, our date didn't work out for you to come. But I'm looking forward to having you come and visit us another time so that, we can share what we do. And Chad, I would love to, Teresa and I would love to be in touch with you as well. Because I think that we could partner with 302 Rescue Crew and be able to have some good collaboration between your program and ours. We've been doing this a long time, and we have often approached grocery stores to give to us and have been refused many times. And I just wondered whether, there is something that you do in order to get markets that refuse to give donations to, when instead of throwing the things that they have, instead of throwing things in the dumpster. Have you had any problems with donors in that respect?
No, and I tell you what you may have experienced. So we're part of a national organization called Feeding America. And so Feeding America is our national umbrella organization. And one of the things that they do is work with those major grocery stores. So Giant, Sam's Club, Acme, BJ's, Walmart, Costco, Whole Foods, et cetera, in a direct partnership with food banks across the country. So part of that might be you experiencing some of that, but we know, and I'm sure you know too, there's a number of smaller grocery stores, locally owned grocery stores and the like that we want to work with, and that would be great to talk to you about, where it's those places that maybe don't have the bandwidth that some of those larger stores do, that we could still get good donations that could go out to, to help organizations like yours. So would love to talk more with you about that for sure.
That's great. Teresa and I would both love to arrange a meeting with you if that would be possible.
Would love
But
to. Love
in the meantime,
have you up to Milford and show you our facility there.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, we actually are part of the food bank, by the way.
You are. You're wonderful partners.
Yeah. But for just anybody who wants to come and see us, and again, we're very open to showing our program. We're very proud of it, and really hope to see some of you come and see us soon.
Thank you, Jerry. I need to make an in-person visit myself. It's been pending for a long time, and I hope to do that soon.
That's great,
Teresa.
Shweta. We'd love to have you.
Thank you. Teresa, any last thoughts?
And as you were talking, Jerry, I remembered what we had discussed earlier. And Chad, you might have some insight on this. Food waste in schools, for an example, would be a really easy fix. I know I've worked in the lunchroom at schools, and if a child takes a milk, for example, but doesn't use it, the school may be under some restrictions to reuse that product because it was on somebody else's plate, even if it's unopened. But if at the trash receptacles they had a bin for unopened packages, that food could then be donated and we could put it to use. So just ideas like that to reach institutional sites where food waste is probably more prevalent.
Teresa, I'll give you a happy maybe to know that share tables are becoming very popular in a lot of our schools. Good. Where
That's great.
If a piece of produce, an orange or an apple or something of that nature, or a milk or whatever, like you say, is unopened or hasn't been eaten in the form of like produce and everything, it goes on the share table, and then other kids can pull from the share table, or all of that. As you indicate, some of the issue is around
Liability.
reimbursement for foods and that type of thing. And you know that if you've worked in the school
Right.
cafeterias, you understand that. But again, once it goes out of that portion of the cafeteria, goes onto a child's plate, it doesn't matter. Once it's on the share table, if an adult takes it or if another child takes it or whatever the case may be, it's just going to get consumed. So that becomes helpful. So share tables are becoming popular.
Okay.
And
Good.
I'd also like to add, I actually implemented that in my kids' school. So I was there for just an year and started a green club and started a share table concept. And it's still on. And the nurses, the refrigerated things have to be delivered within 2 hours or have to be refrigerated. So we figured that portion, and it actually went into the nurses' refrigerator for some time. But they figured out a way, and it's just one school, but you can say just a share table concept, and sometimes it just does not click to the schools. But if the school community can be involved, we teach the young people, as Jerry said, we teach them young, that these are limited and precious resources, and they need to be cared for and not thrown away, so that as an adult, they have better behaviors. So good thought there. Michael, you want to share something?
Sure. Well, first of all, I just want to thank everyone who was attending here today. This is clearly an issue that there's a lot of passion around. I don't think I've worked on a topic that's had more interest as food waste. And so I want to also thank all the speakers. I think, in this realm of sustainability and climate change, I think we all realize there's never any one silver bullet that's going to solve our whole problem. So I think all the ideas that were put forward have some merit. I think they have to be used responsibly. I love the community composting. I think that's a great place for composting. And so, I think we all need to try to do our best to address the issue at different locations and try to minimize the solutions and minimize the problems. And so, I think it's a great topic. And Shweta, thank you for pulling it together and for encouraging people to think about not just listening, but, would any of these things work for your community, and look into it in more detail to see if it's really possible to implement something. I also really encouraged by the school things and just actually educating our youth in any way we can in schools about the problems. I think at least we've created a lot of problems for the next generation. They're sort of stuck with them, unfortunately, but I think the more they become educated, the students that I teach here at the university are really passionate about making the future better. So I think we just need to give them ideas and let them go forward with them. Yep, thank you.
Yeah, totally agree. And then I think there is Youth Environmental Summit coming up this week.
Yes.
And Michael is presenting. I think Bridget is presenting. Bridget, are you presenting as well? And Councilwoman Dee Durham is here. And it's her brainchild happening for the third time. And we're presenting on electric school bus. So I don't know if it's too late to have your students sign up, but it's a great conference. I look forward to it every year. So Chad, would you have any closing thoughts for our audience here?
First, again, I'll echo Michael. Thank you to everyone that took time out tonight to join in to this conversation. It's certainly vitally important. And I think, just to echo again what we said, when we produce enough food in this country for folks not to experience food insecurity. And so it's a sad state of affairs when we have, I think was referenced earlier, Feeding America says 94,000 people are experiencing food insecurity. In Delaware, 112,000 people are utilizing SNAP benefits. These are all people who are experiencing in a very real way, not knowing where their next meal is going to come from, making choices about how to pay for food or pay the rent or pay for food or buy medicine. And so I think that this conversation is vitally important to recover as much of that food that we can to make sure that we can get it out to those that need it, and create an environment where that there's also a level of dignity that those people that need food assistance don't feel like that's not something that they should be asking for, but that everyone feels like that they can access food and they can do it and receive it in a dignified and and heartfelt way. So thank you again to everyone here that participated tonight, and to all the panelists for the incredible work that all of you are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Chad. And lastly, Bridget.
Well, I hate having to go after everyone else did such a great wrap up there. No, again, thank you to everyone involved and for everybody coming. So I have two main things. One being, this is kind of personal. I hope that there's more funding available for projects like all of ours that we're doing here, because it takes a lot of time and effort and energy to produce these projects and make these really impactful results, from the food rescuing to Michael's project. So push funding. And then also, I think it's really important to realize we're all human. There's a capacity limit to what we can handle. Each of us has to start where we have to start, right? So we're not all going to be able to do all the things all the time, right? So my personal goal is to, like, let me commit to do one small thing, like every day, make one small change, and that will continue to compound as we continue to increase our work. And so, don't get bogged down if you're like, oh, there's all these great ideas out here and I want to try to implement them all. Start small.
Thank you so much, Bridget. Good wrap up there. And so thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Thank you so much to all the panelists for bringing all this energy into this discussion today. And we thank you for your time. It is very precious, and we are very grateful that you chose to give us an hour and a half of your evening tonight. I hope you learned something good. Change always starts from home. So I think we all can do better at not wasting food, and maybe scheduling. I think that has helped me a lot, like scheduling and planning our meals a little bit better on the weekends, and making sure to go and designate a day to eat those leftovers. That's a good place to start. I have now been composting for last 5 years at least. So I'm also a gardener, so I put it right back in my garden. And so I think we can have these behavior changes right at home. And then thinking about, if we are plugged into a workplace, we are plugged into a faith community, if you're plugged into a school, how can we take that change to a bigger level? I think that's what we are here for, is how can we do more collectively and not get stuck with that at the individual level. So thank you so much for listening to us, and we will come back with more. I think March, both of our climate conversations are in person at Youth Environmental Summit, and the other one is at Newark UMC, United Methodist Church. We are having an in-person climate conversation, so please join us. It's open for public, March 19th, 3 to 5 p.m. And I'm sure Jen was very happy that I remembered to share that, and I'll share that in our email as well. So a big thank you to you all for your great work that you're doing. And
Thanks, Shweta. Thanks for inviting us.
have a good evening.
And
Bye.
Chad,
Thank you so much. Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks,
yeah,
Shweta.
Chad, how do we
That's good. Bye.
contact you?